Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, which I'm excited to say we are now airing 5 days a week. Once a week, you can still hear an interview with a different consciousness changemaker that is out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness across Spaceship Earth. But now, also, in addition to the weekly interview, on the other 4 weekdays, you can tune in to myself and my co-host Dalien, giving interpretations of our favorite thought-provoking quotes, sharing a bit of inspiring or mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and digging into any other mind-expansive topics we deem worthy of discussion. Today's episode is sponsored by Procabulary.org. Procabulary offers a brilliant new online language course that I just recently completed myself called Core Language Upgrade. The course material is designed to help you analyze the way you use your words and language to create your reality. I personally believe the words you choose to speak or write out is referred to as spelling for a very good reason. You're literally casting an energetic spell every time you open your mouth, which means it's of the utmost importance that you have a foundational understanding about the power or lack of power that the words you're choosing to use conjures up. I strongly believe language mastery is a highly important skill set that way too few people have taken it upon themselves to become educated on. And what Procabulary does is actually provides you with an incredibly easy to follow roadmap that only takes about 10 minutes a day spanned over 21 days to complete, which shows you how to go about changing your language patterns so that you can start getting better results in every aspect of your life. Now, as a Positive Head Podcast listener, if you decide to go to Procabulary.org and purchase the Core Language Upgrade course, you'll get 33% off if you use the promo code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, on the checkout page. The retail price for Core Language Upgrade is normally $299, and I'd say it's really worth every penny of that, but it's especially worth it after your 33% Positive Head discount because it drops the price to $199. That's a crazy good deal that I had to do some serious convincing to get the guys at Procabulary to give to our listeners, so I really hope some of you will take advantage of it while it lasts. Also, if you need more convincing about the power of Procabulary, check out Positive Head Podcast number 20, where I actually interview Procabulary co-founder Mark England, and we discuss language mastery in great detail. All right, all you positive heads, welcome to another episode of the Positive Head Podcast. I am your host, Brandon. I've got my co-host, Dalien the Alien, here with me on this Monday in recording studio Positive Head Central. Hello, Dalien.
Hi there, Brandon, and buongiorno for our Italian podcast listeners.
Have you already used that one though? You trying to do a different?
I don't think so. Yeah, I was pretty sure I hadn't used Italian yet. So.
Okay. What are you going to do when you start getting into more? Like you're going to have to eventually get to like Icelandic and just really random weird hellos that people have never heard before. You're going to have to start studying.
Yeah, maybe we'll get there eventually.
Eventually.
I can keep going. Yeah.
Eventually.
We've got Klingon. We've got some of the Tolkien languages, some of the Elven
Tolkien languages? Oh, we're going to have to finally go beyond real languages?
Yeah, eventually we're going to run out of, real, invented. They're all invented. All the languages are. That sounded a little funny. Invented, all the languages are. Sounds like someone you know.
Oh, well, it's Monday, so we'll let this slide. All right, on to the podcast, everyone. Let's see here. We've got a nice review. I like to feature whenever someone gives us a nice review on iTunes because it makes me feel good, and hopefully it makes them feel good for us to read it out loud. So this particular person said, one of the most unique, intelligent, and fearless podcasts. It's rare that a program can discuss such profound spiritual, scientific, personal, artistic, and definitely sometimes out there subjects with balance, insight, poeticism, and entertainment. Positive Head, while still in its nascent stages, it's already beginning to break paradigms and hopefully will continue to evolve to intriguing new heights. Awesome. That's really, really cool. Thank you very much, Wanderlife, for posting that. That certainly keeps us going over here because Dalien can only run on so much coffee. So, we appreciate you taking the time to write out a good review for us.
So,
all right, what's going on interesting in your world today, Dalien? Any exciting news that you'd like to share?
And now for the mysterious news of the day.
Positive, weird, paranormal, mysterious
positive news of the day.
News of the day, yes.
Hey, although, is it always positive, or sometimes it's just mysterious? It's neither. It's neutral news, right?
To me, they're always positive. Because if I'm not talking about some murder or some of the other ugly things that you could hear about, like, through any major news outlet, then they always actually seem to be positive or to have some sort of positive connotation.
That's true. So, that's true. Good point.
No, I think that's true. The one that I'm going to talk about today probably really does have a pretty real and positive connotation, but it's one that someone shared with me on social media. It's a story that's been around for a minute, actually. Some of the research or investigation into this parts of the story that I'm going to reference here were done a while back, over 12 years ago or so. But this is a story that actually I recall a common friend of ours mentioning parts of this whole saga to me a long time ago. It's interesting because the story reminded me of what this person told me, and now the article mentions it. I'm looking at an article from Disclose.tv, Brandon.
Okay.
That's called Edgar Cayce Was Right. The Hall of Records is the most important discovery of the millennium. And this talks about a complex in the Bushej Mountains of Romania that was discovered. I guess they've known about this underground like system of caves and whatnot for a while. But eventually they realized that there were some strange energy readings here. So finally they brought some scientists, some military personnel to investigate. And they saw that there was an energy dome that appeared to block an area that they were trying to access. And this, of course, is an underground structure, right? So there was an underground energy barrier. When I heard those words, actually, this is the thing that reminded me of what this other person told me many years ago. And what this other person had told me was something similar that was discovered under the Great Pyramid, Brandon, in Egypt, in Giza, right? Around that whole complex. And sure enough, this article a little bit later gets into all that, which was fascinating to me. This complex in Romania features some of the same things that I recall this other person mentioning. And this is a common feature amongst similar sites, okay, because there's more than one. This is part of the story that's fascinating. There are zigzagging underground tunnels, right, that descend at a particular angle, I think maybe 45 degrees or so. And so they're sloping underground, and then they reach a point where they open up into this underground cave or hall, right, that's protected by an impenetrable energy barrier. Similar, like I said, similar structures have been found allegedly underground in Egypt and elsewhere in Tibet, I think. So that was the most fascinating part of the story, is that there are tunnels that connect all these, tunnels that span thousands of miles underground.
And there's energy barriers to prevent people from actually going into certain segments of the tunnels?
Yes. Parts of these halls of records, you could call them, are sealed off effectively.
When you say halls of records, so how do they know that there's records there if they can't get in?
They speculate that there's all sorts of ancient technology or information that's been basically stored away in these. But part of the reason why they infer this is that they've found some of this information available, such as holographic projections.
Oh, wow.
That they claim are accessible by, for example, pressing certain stone tiles and such. There are parts of these complexes
they've seen basically pieces of technology.
Yeah, they are seeded with technology, it seems.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I know there was just recently some reports from heat. I guess they were taking thermal imaging of the pyramids just in recent weeks, and it showed that there was like heat signatures that they couldn't explain. So I wonder if it's something comparable to that.
Yeah, this was a more mainstream bit of news you're referencing. I heard about this too. Honestly, the article, Brandon, is like filled with like so much interesting information, but some of it seems really pretty out there. I mean, it goes into this like rather elaborate account of what one of the people who I guess is part of the source for the article talks about, meeting one of the scientists that was there at one of the sites, right, and being led into one of these underground chambers, and just the language makes you think, makes you wonder if it's not perhaps somehow
legitimate.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still a very interesting read, of course. And the thing about it that's pretty fascinating, dude, is that like I said, I recall like this person that we both know, a common friend of ours, many years ago telling me, hey, they found something under the pyramids in Egypt that may be like a hall of records type thing. I remember them saying underground, hall and energy barrier. And this was at least 12 years ago, which is roughly when the story about the Romanian discovery goes back to. So that makes it sound to me like a little more than just a made-up internet story.
Yeah. Well, as we always say, we share very interesting, good news, mysterious stories, but we're not claiming that they are or they aren't true necessarily. We just we like to explore this stuff and feel like it's something fun to share with you guys. So, thanks for sharing. That's interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on that and see if there's any more developments with that particular story. It kind of makes me think of, there's a site that I saw many years ago called the WingMakers. I think it's wingmakers.com. And there's this whole elaborate fictional story of these underground caverns and all this technology that they find. And it's a fascinating read. It's a site that's been up there for over 10 years.
Is it still up?
I think so. And it's got, supposedly all this art from future versions of ourselves and technology and all this cool music, a lot of it's very interesting website conceptually.
Right.
But yeah, it just kind of makes me think of that. So, Anyway, moving along to, let's see what we got next. Well, I would like to get into the positive pondering breakdown of the day. And let's see, I have actually chosen to do one of these today. The quote of the day that I've chosen is by Dr. Wayne Dyer, recently deceased, amazing spiritual teacher.
Just merged back with the Force.
Yeah, exactly. And the quote by Dr. Dyer is, "How people treat you is their karma. How you react is yours." And I think this is a really great quote to consider, because so often we are so hung up on what someone else is doing to us. It's their fault. It's, they're the ones that caused this. How could they? Why should they? And I think you're missing the point when you do that. And it's so easy to do. I certainly fall into it from time to time, still less and less often perhaps. But when you realize that it's never between you and them, they're just playing a role in your reality. They're reflecting back and challenging you oftentimes with whatever it is they're doing, however unreasonable, however unfair, however unjust. It's not really between you and them anyway. And it actually brings to mind another famous, long quote by Mother Teresa that I'll interject as well. And it goes like this. "People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you'll win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway." And I think that's a really awesome thing to consider whenever you're interacting with any other person, whenever you're dealing with karma. And, the idea of karma is a really fascinating concept to me, because I believe that it's something that oftentimes events are playing out from not only this life, but previous lives, where this person is doing this, that, or another thing to you because you have, think about it like this. If all is literally one and everything is an extension of self, every time you do something, good or bad, to someone else, you're literally doing it to self. And as a result, you're going to feel the energetic repercussions of that behavior either sooner or later. So I believe everything that's happening is in some way karmic, and the way to get off the karmic cycle, so to speak, is to stop reacting, is to realize that you're sort of on the wheel of karma. And of course, Buddhism talks about attaining enlightenment to get off the wheel of karma, to stop creating energetic ties to people, places, and things. And I think that's something that we're constantly doing. So if you can see someone is treating you a certain way or being unjust, if you can understand it as, well, this is some sort of it's really their karma, what they're putting out, how you react is what you're going to create karma with. So it's very important to take the highest road possible if you want to stop having, if someone does something negative to me, then I do something negative back. It's just this never-ending chain that's going to continue until someone gets off the wheel, until someone says, yes, you've done wrong, you have been unfair, I love you anyway, and it's okay. I'm just going to release and surrender and not even give it any of my retribution or negativity back. And I think that takes a very big person to do. But when you understand the way the game is structured, I think it helps for people to break that wheel of karma. So something that I strongly, recommend people doing the next time they've been treated poorly or done wrong, instead of, pointing the finger back and thinking how you're going to get revenge or get even or any of those things, realize that how you react is your karma. And if you can react from be the bigger person, so to speak, it's really a big win for you. Ultimately, it's the ultimate win. And there's actually another article that I found when I was, considering talking about karma today. And I found this one on Elephant Journal. And that's elephantjournal.com. And this particular piece was written up by Stacy Laliberte. I don't know if I'm getting that last name right or not, but the article title is How to Change Your Karma and Get Off the Hamster Wheel. For many of us, life is a never-ending loop, like the 1993 film Groundhog Day. Bill Murray plays a reporter named Phil Connors who's stuck in a continuous time loop, living the same day over and over again. No matter what Phil does, he ends up waking up to the same day. Phil chases women, steals, drives like an idiot, and even gets himself thrown in the slammer. And every morning he wakes up to the same old, until he starts to soulfully re-examine his life and changes his priorities. According to the teachings of Dr. Deepak Chopra, many of us live a life that constantly repeats itself due to what he describes as the software of the soul. Unlike the software on the device I'm using to write this article, it rarely crashes. The software of the soul has three components that form a loop in the operating system of our lives. In Sanskrit, these components are 1. Karma, 2. Samskara, 3. Vasanas. We have probably heard the term karma somewhere in our lives and probably have a preconceived notion as to what it means. What goes around comes around. As we reap, so shall we sow. In other words, a divinely appointed settling of accounts for our actions, whether they be good or bad. In Sanskrit, the word karma simply means action. It is in our actions that we generate an energy that goes out into the world. Samskara is a Sanskrit word that, unlike karma, is unfamiliar to many of us. Samskara means memories. In many Buddhist and Hindu traditions, samskaras are described as imprints in the mind. Finally, we have vasanas, or in English, desires. This is how the software works. We perform an action, remember it, and then desire it. Something as familiar as the well-worn morning ritual of drinking a cup of coffee is a karmic event. We wake up, stumbling to the coffee maker, and begin to brew the bean-begotten elixir that starts our day. We pour a cup while the smell of slow-roasted coffee beans fill the air. Bring the cup to our lips and take a sip. The mind thinks to itself, that's good bean juice. And voila, a memory is born. The software is now humming along perfectly with 2 of 3 components loaded into the operating system of life. We took the action to drink a cup of coffee, created the memory that coffee is good. Once the memory that coffee is good is firmly entrenched in our brain, the desire to have another cup of coffee is just around the corner. It is not too difficult to see how we develop patterns in our life. Unfortunately, not all patterns are innocuous as enjoying a morning cup of joe. Many of us, myself included, develop patterns and behaviors that are harmful to us and keep us from living a happy, joyous, and meaningful life. These patterns cover the entire spectrum of life experience, from addictions to the inability to connect with others, fearfulness, selfishness, the list goes on ad infinitum. For me, it was liquor. I remember my first beer like it was yesterday. I was a shy, socially awkward teenager who preferred not to be around people if I could help it. One day, in a time long ago, a friend was celebrating a birthday and we were allowed to have a few beers. The action of drinking that beer put me on a karmic hamster wheel that didn't stop for 20 years. 5 minutes after it passed my lips, I thought, wow, where has this stuff been all my life? I was no longer shy, I made girls laugh, and felt like maybe all I needed was a couple of beers to be normal. My 15-year-old self remembered that beer is good, and I desired it. Unfortunately, what I didn't realize was that the action of taking that substance and many others allowed me to not feel. And the memory of not feeling the pain of shyness, insecurity, and whatever else teenage me didn't want to feel led me to desire drinking a lot. As we all do, the teenage me grew up, got married, got a profession, built a house, and became a father to a wonderful son. But this didn't stop the software of my soul from working perfectly. I continued to take the action of getting off my face drunk. I continued to remember how I felt when drunk and continued to desire being drunk. In the end, my desire to consume alcohol consumed me and everything that meant anything to me. I had to change my life. To do it, I uninstalled and reloaded the software of my soul, and I did it by changing my desires. I changed my desire to that of living clean and sober, whatever that looked like. To change the negative patterns in our lives or be rid of self-limiting beliefs, the first step is changing our desires. Want to have more friends? Desire being friendly. Is life playing out in a never-ending circle of selfishness? Desire being unselfish. Then take the action of performing unselfish deeds. By the person standing in line behind you at the coffee shop, a coffee. You will invariably feel good about it once you have done it. And you will remember feeling good and will likely desire to do it again. Before you know it, a new habit pattern has formed in your mind, and a negative pattern has transformed into a positive one. Your karma ends up changing, and so does your life.
Really good stuff, dude. Your quotes are really good because they serve as very practical reminders in everyday life. And of course, they pertain also to the way we treat people. I was going to make an observation that you actually ended up getting to there with the last thing that you were reading there. But I was thinking so much of this involves stories, right? And the whole psychological projection bit that we do is we're telling stories about other people. Right? Like we tell stories about ourselves. We meet someone and then they fit a certain, of course, it's just part of the way we operate. And it's unfortunate to a degree, but we respond by visual stimuli so much, right? So we see someone that looks a certain way and immediately we're telling stories, oh, this person must be this way or that. So what we have is that, what your initial quote reminded me of is how we bring so much to the present moment, our mind's conditioning, and it's just the way it operates. But it's constantly trying to correlate the current situation to something it knows. So it's constantly trying to classify what is currently happening in the present moment, and it's seeking to match it to a past experience. So the mind is constantly trying to rehash the past in a way. When we know that, when we can see that pattern in action, then we have the ability to stop it and to say, really, the present moment is a wholly unique, completely original creation in all of life, right?
Right.
There's really no other moment that's quite like it. And sure, frames of reference and past experience can be beneficial to help understand it. But the minute we're overlaying this dogmatic interpretation of what's happening now relative to something that happened, last week, last month, 10, 20 years ago,
right,
we're really limiting all the potential that's there. So
right. Yeah, this article makes me think of the interview I did a while back with Sir John Hargrave, the author of Mind Hacking, because it really is when you can start to look at yourself as a system, as the software of the soul. It's a really interesting concept, and it really helps to, especially for those people who think in very logical terms, and it's you can look at it in that way. And when you realize every interaction, every energetic exchange is a karmic event to some degree. And if you can become aware of that and make sure that the energy that you're putting out is energy that is making the best of the situation, taking the highest road, being the most positive that you can possibly be, you're in effect, you're creating those things in your future because it's going to reflect back. It's the way the game works. So it's as simple as, stop the judgment, and that's so hard for so many of us. I know it is for me. Stop the judgment of right and wrong and who did this and who did what. And when you realize it's like really this personally designed, carefully constructed, I've heard it said, when we die, we'll look at the supposed chaos of this life and see a perfectly woven tapestry where everyone is getting exactly what they need at all times. It appears chaotic from where we're standing now, but when you can take the 30,000 foot view of what's happening on this planet, it's this perfectly perfect dance, and everyone's getting what they need, and that includes all the negative things, all the people that are trying you. They're really stimulating you to grow beyond your reactions and to transcend and go to the next level of the game of life.
Right. They say the beauty and perfection of that tapestry that's woven together with all of our lives intertwined is so astoundingly beautiful that it will make even the most hardened man cry.
Right.
It's so unbelievably
And I can feel
beautiful.
that. I mean, I definitely, I can see it to some degree already, as in my own life, as my perspective has expanded. As maybe, let's say I started with a 10-foot view, and now I'm at a 1,000-foot view, and when I die, I'll be at a 30,000-foot view. It's like the difference between that 10 and 1,000-foot view. I can already see so much more and understand the perfection of how this whole place is perfectly imperfect. and it's it really does. I have those moments now where as you broaden your perspective, things that maybe really hurt and stung before, you see the beauty in, and you have those moments of feeling so connected and so in tune with everything being in its right place, that it brings tears to your eyes, that it brings this overwhelming sense of love and joy. And that's really what we're all after. And that comes with adopting the right perspective.
Yeah. I know that we share a lot of the same paths and methods that we've used to achieve that mindset, really. But I know that for me, for example, and really even in the recent past, things like MDMA have helped me achieve really an understanding and a profound feeling of gratitude and just great love for that, really. But I also can achieve a lot of that same feeling by sitting in a very beautiful natural surrounding, right? Like where I'm completely
meditating,
alone. Or, there's a beautiful sunrise like rising over, the hills and whatnot, and I see the trees and the blue sky. Yeah, you don't have to have drugs. Or really, you don't even need the mountaintop if you can summon that feeling.
Right.
But now that's the thing that I understand most deeply, is that feeling and how you make that connection with everything you understand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Once you understand it's all within you, and so few people actually take the time to go. And I challenge you, if you're someone that hasn't really dedicated yourself to meditation or any of these kind of spiritual practices, hey, I get it. It's kind of like this daunting thing at times, or can be, or like many things, it's almost like doing homework as a kid. It's way worse thinking about doing homework than actually doing it. But exactly. I challenge people, and of course with meditation, it can be this intimidating thing. I don't know how to do it, or there is no right or wrong way, in my opinion. What I would encourage you to do, don't even call it a name. Go sit with your eyes closed, or sit in a room alone and take 10 minutes and drum up feelings of gratitude and appreciation and the beauty for the things that you've seen in your life. And you'll start tapping into a vibration that just brings more of it. That's the crazy, amazing thing about it, is when you can drum up those feelings, you're not only experiencing them in those moments, because there is no difference. When you're sitting there and you're feeling drumming up these feelings, it's the same as, it's the same as having them. Having the experience, or maybe if you're remembering a past experience, it's the same thing to you. And so not only are you giving yourself the experience in that moment without needing any experience to happen other than being with yourself, but you're also creating more of it for you in the future, because that which is like unto itself is drawn. Where attention goes, energy flows. So the more energy you're giving to these kinds of feelings and these vibrations, the more of that you're going to see reflected back into your reality. And that's really the only thing you need to be focused on, or primarily what we all need to be focused on. How are we feeling? And what can we do? What kind of tricks and games and things can we play with ourselves to make sure that we're feeling more and more of the things that we want to see more and more of?
Mm-hmm. Like Bashar calls them permission slips, right?
Right.
Bashar, that
coming
wonderful
up with
entity.
Ideas. Yeah. That's another interesting one. If you guys have ever heard of Bashar, he's a supposed channel, and I don't know whether he's channeling or not channeling, but the information that comes out of his mouth is absolutely profound and amazing. So I highly recommend checking him out.
Channeled by a gentleman named Daryl Anka.
Right.
At first I was, of course, immediately a little leery of the whole channel thing, but as with all of these things, once you hear the message, then it really doesn't even matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all art, all creativity, all inspired, information is channeled to some degree, right? inspired in spirit. You're tapping into a higher part of self, and where that goes from there to become, as Esther Hicks talks about this, non-physical entity Abraham, or, who knows, anything's possible. All I care about more than anything else is what is the message. And if the message feels inspired, tapped into spirit, then I'm into it,
Right.
And I don't care if they're channeling Donald Duck.
Yeah, something I have to quickly say, because we got talking about this, Brandon, but especially in this season of, say, politics, right, and so much kind of negative news by the traditional media outlets, so much cynicism out there, of course.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people who can't make that distinction, even a lot of people I know, people I love, who can't separate the message from the messenger, and they always want to put one down because of the other.
Right.
But I have actually in my own personal life gotten tremendous wisdom delivered to me by people who I really don't have a relationship with now, because they're really not someone who I'm compatible with on an energy level.
Right.
Okay. So I feel like even though that's the case, I immediately saw the value in what they had to say to me a long time ago, and it's still true today.
Yeah.
Even though I can't really, have this person as a part of my life because of a multitude of reasons, really. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, and they say, someone that challenges you or angers you or any of those things, probably karmic, where you're playing out some sort of balancing from previous interactions with them, whether, previous in this life or others. And those are the ones that offer you the most opportunity for growth. And instead of hating them for it, know that they're playing a role. And I think that really it changes the whole view of these challenging characters that we've all had and will have, come into our life. They're always there to stimulate growth. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to approach challenges.
Very well said. In regards to this particular relationship that I was thinking, what you just said is so true that I can't even really tell who is doing what for whom. I think we're both doing it for each other. We're serving these roles and this function that you just described. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of a book I'm pretty sure I've referenced on here sometime before, the Neil Donald Walsh book, one of my very favorite all-time books, and it's a children's book, The Little Soul in the Sun. And it talks about, that whole experience, how souls will choose to lower their vibration and give other souls that they love this experience of someone to forgive or challenge to overcome, and they'll have lost themselves in that process. And your job is to remember them for who and what they truly are, which is really a divine being, who's forgotten itself if they're doing this ugly thing. All right. Well, that leads us into the next segment I would like to cover today, and that is the question that we received. A great question, actually. That,
awesome. We got one today.
Yeah, it ties into really ties in well to what we're talking about here. And this one is from Janet Green. Janet, thank you for writing in. And the question is, do you believe in soulmates or soul families?
Yeah. Surprised we haven't gotten that one yet.
Yeah. And it really ties into what we're talking about here is, the way that I view reality is, think of, we're all one with God's source, whatever you want to call it, right? And think of it as a giant tree. Reality, if God is a tree and it's all one, but you happen to you're on a particular branch and you're a particular leaf on a branch. And maybe in this case, Dalien, you're on the leaf, you're a leaf right next to me. So, yes, I'm one with it all, but there are certain beings that actually are very close to you, where you have most of your karmic work to do. And I believe, and many others believe, that we actually incarnate together in soul families or soul groups. I remember getting an astrological chart reading many, many years ago, and the woman did a chart reading for myself and my brother, and she goes, "Wow, seeing your charts together, it's so wild the way they tie in together. You've obviously had many lives together." And so, yeah, I believe that. I think certain characters incarnate together and, continue to play out these karmic relationships until all possible experience has been experienced that is necessary for a certain segment of your growth. And, you may have people even in this life that get on, the train of your life, so to speak, at a certain stop, and then they get off, and maybe they'll get back on. And I think we kind of do this role throughout eternity with certain characters. So the idea of an actual soulmate or a twin soul or something like that, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can find, even talking about the difference between soulmates and twin souls. A twin soul being a soul maybe that you broke off from source at the exact same spot, and so this is literally like as close to another part of you as there can possibly be. Whereas a soulmate can be someone that is you're meant to grow with. A lot of times, of course, romantic relationships provide the most opportunity for growth for many souls, not all, but that's a big way of growing for many people. And so, of course, your primary relationship or romantic relationship being kind of your soulmate makes a lot of sense. That's someone that you're here to do the most growing by bumping up against, so to speak. So I think we incarnate with soul families and people that you have a very deep, long-running connection with that are playing out their lives and growing from interacting with through many lifetimes. And there's a movie actually that kind of demonstrates this, Cloud Atlas. It shows how people continue to interact with each other through lives and the same characters. And I think that's actually interesting enough. The woman who did that astrological chart reading, I remember at the time she compared my chart to the writers of that movie who had just written The Matrix at the time.
The Wachowskis.
Yeah. And she made a reference, and of course, those being some of my favorite movies, The Matrix, they're so philosophical, and kind of telling the story of this reality in a way that in story form, but I think there's a lot of underlying truth to some of the concepts that they present. Mm-hmm. But that's getting off on a whole nother tangent. So yes, to answer your question, Janet, I believe that soulmates are a real phenomenon. I believe soul families are a real phenomenon, and you will inevitably be attracted to those. Your vibe attracts your tribe, so to speak. So you will inevitably bump up against those. And I think sometimes when you meet someone and you just have that feeling like you've known them forever, and and then oftentimes they end up playing the significant role in your life. I think that's something that happens to a lot of people, and a lot of people have had that sort of experience.
Absolutely. I think that maybe 20 or 30 years ago, people probably had a different definition, perhaps what is still mostly understood by soulmate within the context of a romantic relationship, like you said. But I think that these days more and more people are opening up to the idea that soulmate can be really anyone that you have a really close relationship with that is really a member of your posse, really, in life, right? It can be a family member, a romantic, other half, or a brother or sibling-like figure in your life. Kind of like you said, you and I are kind of like brothers by this point in life, right? And I think that over the last, couple decades, there's been a redefinition of the concept of a soulmate away from being exclusively this other and always highly idealized romantic partner, right?
Right.
But I think that also is perhaps related to the fact that people are more and more pursuing, a life that's, truer to their deeper calling in life, and that's more authentic, which would entail following their instincts and, living outside of a very kind of regimented or, more traditional path in life. People are much more willing to follow their bliss, as they say. So I think that naturally really leads to, having a much greater chance of meeting your soulmate, whether that person is, like I said, an other half in the traditional sense, or a partner that you just do great works with, whether it's a creative partnership, business partnership, or creative in other senses, besides artistic. Yeah, many different shapes and forms.
And I think it's really important for people, especially when you consider the idea of soulmate or, romantic partnership. A lot of times people, in our society, we have this idea that a relationship is only successful if it lasts forever. And I believe that's a big misconception. I can have a relationship that lasted, a year, and it's hugely successful. I believe you come together with a soul as long as the opportunity for growth is there. And when you've exhausted the opportunity for growth at the point in your journey that you're at, a natural separation begins to occur. And what happens with a lot of people is I think they're they get attached and they don't want to let go, even though they can tell the time is, things are pulling apart. The energy is different than it used to be 2 years ago or what have you. And when you can release the idea that you never lose anyone or anything, you can only take breaks from them. You're literally in eternity and you're one with all things, including all those that you love. And that's the beauty of, this experience. It's all transient, but at the same time, it's eternal. So it's like this sort of dichotomy of existence. And when you can understand and really live from a perspective of, I can never truly lose anyone, even if I'm taking a break from them for the rest of this lifetime. What is this lifetime in the grand scheme of eternity? It's a drop in the bucket, but a blink. And so yeah, I think that was a very interesting question, and I really was excited to answer that one. And it was perfect to go with kind of the other karmic related stuff we were talking about today. So let's see. Well, we're getting kind of down to it here. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in as always. Please, give us a rating on iTunes if you have the time. We certainly appreciate it, and we might even read your review if it's raving enough. No, I appreciate even just a star review. Anything that you can do helps on iTunes to get us some more exposure there, the more ratings and reviews, as I've talked about before. And of course, our whole mission with this podcast, it is a labor of love. We do it because we want to spread positivity. So we hope we're doing that and achieving that in some level as you tune in. And if you are appreciating our efforts, please tell a friend, share it with someone. Tell your friends on social media about the Positive Head podcast. It certainly would be appreciated as well. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. As you go about the rest of your day, remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Be well, everyone.